potential just waiting to be unleashed. If you're looking to massively uplevel your performance in all areas of life, you've come to the right place. My goal on this podcast is to take you beneath the surface so you can connect with yourself on a deeper level while providing you with valuable insights and the tools necessary to navigate life's challenges and go after your goals with strength, clarity, and wisdom. If you're ready to uncover the truth which lies underneath so you can recognize your powerful feminine leadership style, pursue your goals unapologetically, and thrive in every aspect of your life, hit the follow button and get ready to explore the incredible possibilities that lie within you. Together, we'll uncover your next steps in achieving peak performance, because actually, you can. Welcome to another episode of Actually, You Can. On today's episode, I have the pleasure of connecting with Shane, the creator of the Friendship Blueprint, who is transforming the way we think about connections. Once feeling isolated, despite surrounded by friends, Shane turned his personal journey into a practical framework for building deep, meaningful relationships that truly last. With his unique method, the Ankle Deep method, which I'm so excited to dive into, Shane redefines vulnerability, teaching us how to build trust step by step rather than oversharing upfront. In this episode, we're diving into his actionable strategies for moving beyond small talk, balancing openness with boundaries, and creating friendships that feel as fulfilling as family bonds. Whether you're a social butterfly or someone who struggles to connect, there is going to be something in today's episode that will support you. So welcome to the show today, Shane. It's such a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
And so I want to kick off with the simple question: what makes a friendship? So in Australia, we have this term that is like, oh, your mate. And that essentially means they're not really our friend. So I'd love to get clarity on, first of all, what is a good friend?
I think it really depends on where you are at in the friendship, right? Because there's our environmental friends, which are the people that we are surrounded with that we may not grow super close with. But what I've noticed in some cultures, especially in the Western culture, when we think of friend, we tend to think of someone who's in our inner circle, someone that we ride or die with. It's like the people that we connect with the most. We call up on any time basis all the time. But in truth, if we ignore our environmental friends, the ones we only see at the gym, the ones we only see at the store, or the coffee shop, or at school or work, if we ignore those relationships, there's so many studies that show that it actually harms us mentally and emotionally. And so it really just depends on what stage you're at. I break it down into 3 different categories, and there's different circles within those categories, but it looks different for everyone on whichever perspective you're at.
So let's jump straight into those categories. I'd love to hear more. The
Yeah.
fact that you just had a category of environmental friends, I'm like, cool, tell me more. Let's get into
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Well, the first one is the environmental category. So these are the ones that you only see when you're at a certain place, right? That could even include certain friend groups, right? You go to a certain friend group and you only see them in that area because they're associated with like other friends, but you're not technically going to hang out with them outside of that group. Or you go to the gym, you only see them in this area or even work or wherever it may be. Then you have your chosen circle. These are the friends that you have intentionally decided to pursue outside of the environment. You are investing more time with them. They're getting more of a look inside your life. You're seeing more of their life. And so you're going into a deeper relationship. And then there's the inner circle. These are the ones that's typically a very small circle, 4, maybe 5 at most, typically. And these are the people that you can call up at any time. These are the ones that they know us inside and out. We can call them on our bathroom floor crying if we need them in those scenarios. So those are 3, and there's many areas that those break down into in total on different stages. And so when you recognize where you're at in those, you can actually get a lot more fulfillment in your life and peace in your life by not trying to make everyone an inner circle friend.
And I've never thought of, I think when you think of friendship, you're like, oh, would I catch up with that person outside of work? No. Then you go, well, are they actually my friend? I love that you can
Exactly.
have
Yeah.
friends that you see in particular situations, because I
Mhm.
wouldn't say you would call them just acquaintances. There's more of a stronger bond there, whether it's you bond through workplace trauma or something like that, but there's still
Yeah.
a connection there, right? I love that you can just go, you're an environmental friend, and that's cool. You mentioned depending on what stage you're at in that friendship. Tell me more about that. What do you mean by what stage you're at?
So in every category, there's a few circles. So for example, in the environmental, there's three circles. And the first one is your surrounding friends. These are the people that, like, let's say, for an example, if you go to the gym, they're the people that are in the gym that we might talk to, we might not talk to, we might just like, it's super, super small talk. We might go over the weather, whatever it may be. Then you have your familiar friends, which these are the ones where when you go in there, you will stop and talk to them when you see them. Like, you might not look for them, you might not, like, seek them out and, like, "Hey, let me go where is this person? I need to talk to them." But they're the ones that, like, "Okay, we've connected, we're know each other a little bit deeper than just, like, the casual people around me." And then you have your comfort friends in the environmental circle, and these are the ones you do seek out. They're the ones, like, when you're in that friend group, you're like, "I wanna be around you. I might not hang out with you outside of this place, but I wanna be around you." That's where, your work bestie, right? It's like, where can I be around you in this place? I am looking for you when I come into this area. And so a lot of the times what I teach people, and you're trying to get deeper friendships, is figure out one, maybe two people and where are they currently at. And then the goal is to just move them from one circle to the next. That's the simplest thing. We all not all, but we have a major tendency to want to get someone from the to any circle to the inner circle friendship. And the truth is, it takes the studies show right now that says it takes 200 hours to make a best friend. And so it's so long. It does take time. But in our head, we're like, well, I want to fast track this. I want to do all these things. I want to make sure I go really, really quickly, which, leads us into a lot of the vulnerability issues that are common in the marketplace, where they're saying, hey, just reveal your deep, dark secrets to create this connection. But that ends up pushing people away rather than bringing them closer.
200 hours to make a friendship, like
Yeah.
an inner circle friendship. I love that because I mean, you mentioned that sort of the goal is to bring people through the circles to develop deep friendships. Because I think there's probably a few people listening here. I mean, I know myself, I would say I probably have, to your point, 5 really close girlfriends, and I couldn't think of
Mhm.
having any more than that of best friends because I'm like,
Yes.
it's time consuming to invest in relationships, and you want to make sure you're showing up meaningfully however you can. And so I like the idea that it's okay to have a small group of close friends, but it doesn't mean they're your only friends. You have those different types of friends in
Mhm.
different other environments. And so I would love to hear, before we get into how to move someone through those layers, what, oh, this sounds so robotic when we're talking about people, but what's the criteria of a good friend? Like, what's the criteria of someone who would look to move through those layers, or do things about people get revealed as they go through the process and determine if they go to that next level? I mean, I'm talking
So
to us
it
like we're robots.
Yeah. It's a great way to understand because every circle is dependent on your needs. Right?
Mm,
So, for example, in the chosen circle, there's two, or the chosen category, there's two circles, which is the victory circle and the processing circle. The victory circle is the people that you don't necessarily bring into the hard moments of your life. You're not going
mm,
to call them in the moment at all, but you'll let them know that you went through it after you've already
mm,
gone through it. Or maybe they're just someone you like to celebrate with and you bring them into the celebrations of your life. They're more involved, but they're not in the moment, which the processing circle are the people that you do bring in the moment. Like, hey,
mm,
I'm going through this struggle. I need your voice in my life. I'm giving you more of a place, more of an authority in my life to speak into me. And so when I wanted to bring someone from my victory circle to my processing circle, I had to look through it and go, you know what? I actually don't feel safe sharing
mm,
intimate details with this person. Well, why don't I feel safe? Oh, you know what? Every time I share something intimate with them, they try and fix me. They just immediately speak advice into me. They don't want to hear me. They don't want to listen to me. And I don't feel comfortable with my intimate details. Now, this might be different depending on whether you're with a friend and you're like, I want to go deeper with them. Well, what do
mm,
I need from them? Well, I actually don't feel like they pursue me. I don't feel like they're intentional in our times. I don't feel like they ask good questions. Like, they don't care to make it about me. It's always about them. And so what you're looking for really is dependent on where you're at, where what circle your friends are currently at. And it's really just a
mm.
gauge to be like, okay, where are my current needs? It's less of like a categorizing them and more recognizing what stage of life am I in and what are my current needs to be able to move deeper into our friendship.
Yeah, and You mentioned the word before, vulnerability. What role
Yeah.
does vulnerability play in friendships? I guess from both parts, the friend and the person looking to make a friend.
Vulnerability is the key. It is the secret sauce into every part of relationship. You can't move into a deeper circle of friendship, any other stage of friendship, without some level of vulnerability. Just the way it's being taught in the marketplace right now maybe isn't the best way to do it, because the way I look at it is vulnerability is almost like a balloon. And if you get a balloon right out of the package and you just put a bunch of air pressure into it, it explodes. It
Yeah,
can't handle it. But
yeah.
if you go slowly, the balloon can expand. It gets comfortable at this new stretchiness level. And
Yeah.
then if you do that a few times and then once again, you put a bunch of air pressure in, it can handle it.
Mm.
And so a lot of us, what we do is we meet someone and then we just give all our vulnerability at once. And here's the thing that happens, which a lot of people aren't aware of, is most of us have a desire to care and comfort the people that share their vulnerable moments. But
Mm.
because we don't have that relationship with them, that relational equity, we don't know how to care for them. And so, because we don't know how to do or what to do, we get uncomfortable. And a lot of times, it's not
Mm.
necessarily their depthness of vulnerability that they shared with us, is that we don't know how to respond to the vulnerability in that situation, which now when we leave, we see that person again and we're like, we get uncomfortable immediately. We remember that and it's like, oh, I didn't feel good around them. But if you just took the time to just reveal it little by little and grow that relationship, then you can dive deeper. But the vulnerability that is the secret sauce, it's just how you do it is what makes or breaks it.
I love how you've articulated that so beautifully about when someone shares something vulnerable, and it's not like you don't care, like you deeply care, you just don't
Mhm.
know what to do with that vulnerability. I think there's so many people who can resonate with that. I was actually just talking to a friend yesterday who mentioned similar situation. She had a friend who sent her a text and she didn't know how to deal with it, and then she realized she'd sat on it for a couple of days and she's like, oh shit, that's not good, like this
Yeah.
person just confessed something to me, I didn't know how to handle it, and now it sounds like I don't care.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's a completely normal thing. And I'd love to hear, what does vulnerability look like in terms of if we're starting to go, okay, I feel like I want to bring this person into one of my other layers, or move them through categories.
Mhm.
How can you start to open yourself out without sharing your life story with them?
Yeah. So, I'd say it's less about your life story and more about the emotions tied to that story. So, if you are sharing a component of your life and everything, if you're currently in the emotion and you're expressing it, that goes past ankle deep vulnerability.
Mm,
So, if you're saying like, "Oh, man, yesterday was so hard. I am feeling so depressed. I don't know how to handle this situation. I'm stressed out. I don't feel good enough." Like that can be a little bit intense in the beginning stages of a friendship, especially if you're feeling it.
mm,
But if you were outside of the emotion in that current stage of sharing, in like a new friendship, like you're just
yeah.
starting the vulnerability phase, like that's okay with an inner circle friend, like go there, But when the early stages, the difference would be, man, yeah, last week was really hard. I kind of struggled getting through the day and it was a little difficult, but things are looking a little bit better now in some capacity. Like you're sharing emotion without feeling it. It's also information that you're not too worried about if someone else hears it. It's being honest without giving every detail into the emotion of what was happening. That's the key in vulnerability, is because you can't have vulnerability without emotion. It's just, are you currently in it while you're fully experiencing it? Or do they have to care for you while you're sharing these things in an early stages of friendship? Or are you bringing them into details of your life? And then you see how do they respond to that,
Yeah.
right? When we teach what's called the friendship blueprint, it's a 6-step element to building good friendships. And in one of those steps is reflecting. And you have to reflect on the previous hangout and see, like, the big question is like, how do I know when to go deeper in my vulnerability? How do I
Mm,
reveal more? Well, you have to reflect on how did they respond to the previous vulnerability you shared with them. Now, this
yeah.
could be good or bad, and it could be a good way is like, hey, they asked questions. They were attentive to me. They were intentional. They cared. A bad version would be, oh, they made it about them. They turned it around. Oh, it became a game of topper. Who had the worst week?
Yeah.
Or they interrupted you or talked over you. And these are indicators, because how someone treats you in the small moments is how they'll treat you in the big moments. There's no difference in that area. How you manage the little things in your life will reflect in your business life, in your marriage life, wherever it goes. These little moments actually have massive impact. And so if they're treating your little vulnerabilities in a way that leaves you feeling neglected or unimportant or unknown, when you share bigger ones, it's going to be the exact same. It's just going to hurt more.
Yeah, and I love how you've shared that as well. And I think it's important for listeners to know that if someone reacts, I'm using air quotes here, poorly to you sharing vulnerability, it will suck, yes, and it will probably hurt and not feel good. And hopefully that won't discourage you from sharing again, because it's not a reflection on you and your vulnerability. It's that person's capacity to receive. And so I'd love for
Mhm.
you to share, if someone's sharing something vulnerable for you in terms of a friendship, what does a good friend look like in terms of responding? How can we
Mm.
respond in a way that is really receptive of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing I would recommend you do is be present. If you want to be a good friend, you have to be present. And that means your mind is not somewhere else in the midst of a conversation, in a place where they aren't as well. So if they're talking about their work life, it's okay if you start like thinking about work life too. You're kind of getting on that same level with them. But if you're thinking about, oh, I got to get dinner tonight. Oh,
Yeah.
I need to go shopping. I need to get the laundry done. Like that's not being present. But if they're talking about laundry and you start thinking about your laundry, like that's the same level right there. So being present in that capacity, and a lot of the times is if you can set up a habit of reflecting at any stage of your life, it will allow you to be more present because when you're in the situation where you're hanging out and something happens, maybe they say something that irks you, or you realize this problem or this anxious moment is popping up for work or whatever it might be. And you don't realize that if you don't have a time set up to deal with that, you're going to try to start figuring that out in the moment. But if you have a time set up where you're going to be reflecting, it's way easier to be present because you know, oh, I'm going to deal with that later. Like I'm coming to that in a little bit. My wife and I do this all the time. It's like, hey, we're going in this situation. We know we're probably going to have a difficult conversation with them. Well, you and I, let's connect on this afterwards. Like, or like we go to a party. It's like, hey, afterwards, we're going to talk about this whole thing. And that allows us to be more present in the moment because we know we're going to have that time to talk later.
Yeah, it's like I think in the military they use after action reviews. It's sort
Yeah.
of like the friendship equivalent of that. I'm not saying get out like a flip
Yeah.
chart and dot points, but yeah, definitely the power of a debrief is so important. And so you mentioned that's part of your friendship blueprint. I'd love
Yeah.
for you to share more about that. You mentioned 6-step process. Run us through what that looks like.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I struggle with my life for years and years with friendships and feeling accepted. Like I was so desiring to be accepted that I changed who I was. And so I got to the point where I was with these friends and I felt alone because I wasn't who I was. I wasn't revealing who I was. I was being who I thought they wanted me to be, and so I was completely inauthentic. So I went on this massive journey to learn everything I could about friendships, relationships, dating, marriage. I spent about 10 years going after this. And in that process, after whiteboarding everything, I'm like, oh, there's so many elements to friendships. But really, it all came down to six to building a successful friendship. And when I discovered this, I was like, I started applying it and working with a lot of people and noticing that, like every issue in their friendship came because they lacked one or two of these areas. And so most people are naturally really good at about two, maybe three, but they're missing the other half, which is why they're struggling in a lot of their friendships. Which it's very simple. The first one is you need to understand your needs and you need to be able to express your desire to friendship. If you don't know your needs, you will not have successful friendships. They're going to tell you where what your needs are. They're going to direct where the friendship goes. And you're going to end up in circles where are probably good friends, but because you don't understand your needs, you're not able to show up as who you are, and you're going to be tossed and swayed. You're going to leave feeling uncomfortable because and blaming them, which is what I did all the time. I was like, it's their fault, it's their fault. But when I figured out my own needs and I was able to express this to people, then I was able to have a solid foundation in my friendships, and the circles got so much better. With circles as in like my friendship circles, like the group of friends.
Yeah. And you just touched on needs there. What does a need look like? So when you're saying understand your needs, what are some of those?
Yeah. So okay, so there to phrase this well, there's a difference between needs and expectations. Now, needs are the things that if you do not have, you will not survive. You will die. It will just remove the life from you. And I give this as a picture of like a flower. If you take the soil away from the flower will not survive.
Mhm.
Likewise, if you stop watering it or if you no longer give it sunlight, it can't survive. Well, expectations is how you meet those needs. So an expectation would be
Mm.
how what kind of soil are you going to use? How are you going to tend the soil? How are you going to water it? Are you going to use a pail, a hose? Are you going to rely on rainwater? And same thing with the sun. Is it going to be near a window? Is it going to be outside? Is it going to be under a lamp? All these things shift. And a lot of the times I notice is that people have this struggle with, oh, I don't want to share my needs because I don't want to be too needy. It's
Yes.
not that they're expressing their needs, it's that they're controlling the outcome of the expectations of how they want people to meet that need. And the yeah. So that's what we all need to work on. A need can be, I need to feel safe. I need to feel like I belong. I need to feel pursued. I need to feel like whatever it might be. The needs change based on the circle of friendship that you're in. Like, I don't need to feel safe with my environmental friends because there's not that level of vulnerability that's established yet. But I do need that with my chosen friends, the ones that I'm going deeper with, the more I'm bringing into my life, I'm giving more authority with their voice in my life. And so those are the main things. And expectations, those can look like, hey, I need to feel safe. Well, what does that look like? Well, I need to know that when we're in a conversation, that you are asking me questions. So, and this becomes a request, right? When you come to expectations, we can't control the outcome. We need to have a conversation with how it's fulfilled. And for one, I had a conversation with a friend. I was like, hey, I just need to feel like you're pursuing me. And this is like later stage. We've been friends for a while. I wanted to take the friendship deeper into another level. And I was like, hey, can you just reach out to me maybe once every 2 weeks just to check in? And I'll do the same. Or we also talked about, hey, what do you think about we'll hang out once a month, ideally. I'll plan that hangout, you plan the next one, and we'll go back and forth. These are how we talk about the expectations of that need of feeling pursued.
I love that. And it reminded me of something I saw on Instagram where it was like a group of mates get on voice message and they've been voice messaging each other on Wednesday. They call it Waffle Wednesday. That is get on
Nice.
and leave a voice message that is about goodness knows what random shit, but they just connect on a Wednesday and that's what they do as a group. I'm like, that's so beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, I have a group that meets on Fridays, and then my wife and I, we did Taco About It Tuesdays. That was fun.
Ah,
Had tacos, had a little conversation.
I was thinking about my friend, and we're like, oh, we should do like shit talk Saturdays because that's all we do is talk shit. But I was like, you can make your own thing of it. I love it. And so,
You can make your own little thing. I love that.
and so you mentioned understanding needs is the first step. What's step
Mhm.
two?
So the step 2 is you need to initiate the hang. We tell people you have to become the initiator.
Mm.
You need to put on the hat for initiating every interaction for a period of time, because a lot of the issues that come up in friendships is we don't ever initiate. We always wait for people.
Yes.
And so a lot of the time what we do in the friendship blueprint is we spend most of our time less on the tactics on how to do it, but more on the mindset of why do you not reach out to people? Whether it's feeling like, oh, I don't feel like they care about me, I don't want to seem too needy, whatever it might be, we try to spend more time on like, why are you not reaching out to them? Because we're all telling ourselves a story. And what happened is like maybe years ago you reached out to someone and they responded a nasty text like, oh my gosh, you always are asking me for things. You're always so clingy. And now we're taking that story and we're applying it to other friends, other people, and thinking they're going to do the exact same thing. And those are the things we kind of have to identify. But if you can learn how to initiate, if you can come prepared, right? A lot of the times we ask people to hang out, we don't have any idea of what we're doing. All we want to do is just get to that front door and be like, "Hey, can you want to hang out?" But in truth, you should come prepared. You should come prepared with your schedule, your availability. When are you available to meet with them and have a couple backups? And you should also have a couple places that you want to be meeting with them. And that way, if they can't go to one spot, they're like, oh, I don't like that food. Great. How about this spot? Or otherwise, you're going to fall into the abyss of what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And it's like, well, we'll just figure it out later. And we don't. We don't ever figure it out later. So that's the main thing. That would be step 2 is like, understanding that you are the initiator and you have to be the one initiating the hangout.
I think that's such a great thing to apply to any area of life. Like if you're not initiating friendships, where else aren't you initiating in your life? Just
Yes.
FYI.
Yeah.
But yeah, but come with options. I love that. I'm so thankful. I'm a new mum, and so I am so thankful for my girlfriends who text me and be like, "Hey, are you free XYZ time?" This because
Come
last thing I want to
on.
be doing is make more decisions at the moment. So yeah, 100%. I definitely appreciate my blessed friends for initiating and coming with suggestions at the
Yeah.
moment. Okay, so step 3, what is it?
Step 3 is actually hanging out with them. So this is where
Actual
you start going ankle deep. So we understand our needs. We have expressed we have a desire for friendship. We've initiated the hangout. Now we're actually hanging out with them. And this is where you have to be present, where it's not just about you going ankle deep, but it's also about getting to know them. And so it depends. A lot of us are typically on one spectrum or the other. We love to get to know people, or we love to talk about ourselves. And so we have to get that balance and understand that it's not just about you, but it's also about going ankle deep, building that connection, building that vulnerability. Because without vulnerability, you can't have the connection you desire. It won't be there. And a lot of us, we tend to stay in facts, detail, opinions. Like the only way to get into vulnerability is to include some level of emotion. If that's lacking, then you won't be able to go where you are desiring. Most of us are desiring. And here's an important thing: hot topics or hot opinions or controversial opinions, like, oh, I really believe this thing and everyone hates that. That's not vulnerability.
Yeah.
That's a fact. That's a deep opinion. And I've noticed a few people, they'll stay in that area. They're like, oh, well, I was vulnerable. I shared this controversial thing that I believe that no one else believes. I'm like, yes, that's an opinion. That's a thought. That's an idea that is revealing more about you. But if you want that connection, the thing that like really bonds us together, that is through some form of emotion.
Yeah, I was about to say, are there any bad questions or questions you should avoid on that first meeting? It's like a first date question, like they say, don't talk about politics or religion or whatever. Are there any things that we should be steering clear for when we're looking to go ankle deep?
I would say, don't share your deep dark secret. Avoid that area. But no, I mean, just create curiosity. When you're asking questions, try and gain clarity and understanding before you make it about yourself or offer advice. I would avoid immediately if someone shares a problem they're facing to try and fix it or try and even comfort it in that moment. Let put on your discovery hat and just try and better understand what they're going through. If they're talking about their work and you don't know, then think about it. Do I know what they do for a living? Do I know their coworkers' names? Like, oh, what time? Like, what are some details about her work that I'm not aware of? And kind of just put on that discovery hat and like just go wherever that leads you. Have fun with it. Like, it's not as long as you're not asking like, hey, tell me about the trauma of your parents divorcing when you were 4. I wouldn't necessarily go there. you know, but it's funny. I tell people like I have inner circle friends. I have even friends in the processing circle where sometimes the very first thing out of our mouths is pain. It's hard moments, and that's okay when you get there. But if you're moving someone from the environmental circle to or the environmental category to the chosen category, that has a little bit more nuance, and I would avoid that. I wouldn't go into the trauma phase yet.
It's so true. I was talking to another guest on the show about networking for introverts, and I was asking him like, what sort of questions, especially for introverts, do you just walk up to someone and start talking about? And we came to the conclusion that we don't want to be complaining. Like complaining will get you off the guest list
Mm,
for any event really quickly. It might
yeah.
bond, but it won't get you an invite back. So it sounds like very similar to making friends. Probably don't lead with all the negatives. Be curious.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. I really like that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's so true. Because we all like to trauma bond with our inner circle friends, maybe. Just go, man, that was fucking shit. But
It's hard
yeah.
too. It's like when you especially if you bring someone into an inner circle friend, like you're hanging out with your closest friends and you bring in a new member, it's really easy to try and bring them into that depth, which can create whiplash, like relational whiplash when you do that because they think now, oh, I'm here. But in truth, you're like, oh, that was kind of a momentary thing. And now they're just like, oh, where do I stand in this relationship? Which a big piece of it, we teach a lot in the friendship blueprint to overshare your expectations. And the more time you put into the preparation of how you're going to communicate, the less time it takes to communicate. Because sharing an expectation could be as simple as, I'm so excited for us to hang out today and just get to know each other more. Super short, super simple, but there's a priority of why we're here. Man, I'm so glad we're just gonna hop on this game and just chill. Because sometimes you or because before it's like you may have reached out to him like, "Hey, I wanna go deeper with you. I wanna have a like, I wanna get to know you heart to heart," and then you have a terrible day at work and you're like, "I don't have capacity for this," and then you adjust, you have that conversation like, "Hey, can we I know we were gonna go deep. Can we just relax? Can we just watch a movie? I don't have the ability to do that," and creating this consistent communication creates a lot of peace to a lot your friends and you. I get that compliment probably the most from my friends is they're very happy that I over communicate my capacity. Cause I'll let them know like I just don't have the ability. I want to. I always phrase it in a sense of where do I want to go when I say I cannot do something. So I appreciate I'm like, "Man, I'm so thankful that you wanna go deeper. I personally don't have the capacity for this. I'm tired. I've honestly like, it's been a really long day, but I really want to do that. Can we do this at another time? Can we do it next week when we hang out again?" Whatever it might be. And, like, always letting them know when I can't do something that I do want this. This is something I desire. I just can't do it right now.
Thank you for sharing that because I think there's a lot of people who, especially this time of year, it's holidays, things are stress is a lot more prevalent, I guess, just
It
by
is,
nature of
yeah.
being the holidays and feeling like they need to commit to things when they really just don't have the energetic capacity to. And then it's just a shit show for everyone. You haven't shown up how
Mhm.
you would like to. The person will inevitably experience that lesser, I don't mean that in a bad way, but version of yourself.
Yeah.
So being able to communicate like that, I think is so beautiful.
It's just learning how to listen to your own body a lot of the times. I'll never
Yeah.
forget, I was, early 20s, and I was hanging out with some people and I was feeling this like I didn't know it was like a form of anxiety. I didn't know it was like I would my energy levels were so down. I was feeling this tightness in all around my body. I was feeling a little bit irritated, and but I didn't know why. I was like, okay, it'll just pass. And then all of a sudden, I just snapped. I yelled. I'm like, what the heck was that? I'm like, someone said something that like kind of critiqued me a little bit, and I just did not handle it well. I'm like, where did that come from? Because I'm a relatively calm person, and then I ended up just getting some alone time. I completely recharged. I'm like, okay, that's all gone now. Did all I need was to just be alone for a little bit? And I started applying this and recognized like, oh, I can feel it. I can feel that tightness coming, or I can feel I'm get a little bit irritable. I need to be alone. I need to be understand my own capacity and grow this. It takes time, but it really just listening to your own body and how you respond to different ways and how we get energy. It's like whether it's recharging, whether it's reading a book, whether it's hanging out with friends, whether it's having a good phone call with someone. We all recharge differently, and understanding the signs when we're low and how to recharge is critical.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because I think it's so important to have your own toolbox. I'm very similar. I say to
Yeah.
my husband, when you come home from work after a day being a mum, I'm like, I either need a shower, time away from all humans, or time outside. Ideally, all three in one day would be awesome. But you need your own toolbox, and everyone's
Yes.
toolbox is different. So thank you so much for sharing that. Step four.
So
What?
step 4 is gonna be reflecting. So this is the ingredient that I think so many people ignore. There are many studies that have come out with just if we involve just a bit of reflection a day, the mental health benefits are crazy off the charts. Like, it is so healthy to just reflect about the day, that just that alone. But now when you go to it with purpose, when you bring it into your friendships, and this is really identifying the emotions that you experience especially for men. Men really need to do this because we can tend to push down our feelings and ignore them. And, it could be as little as someone just saying a small thing that just bothered you and just recognizing, oh, you know what? I actually felt a little belittled in that moment. Like I have a emotion sheet that has like 50 or 60 emotions on it. It has like 12 main ones and then it breaks each one down into like 8 sub ones. And I'll just go through them like, you know what? That is what I'm feeling. And I just kind of sit in that for a little bit. Or like I try and reflect. And because a lot of the times we have one moment when we're hanging out, whether we said something, we did something, they did something that just sends us into a frenzy in our mind. It has us running around, twisting and turning, makes us question the whole friendship. Like it makes us going into crazy ideas that would just like burn a good friendship when all we needed was to just acknowledge what happened. Sometimes there is an important step, which is the fifth step, which is follow up. You have to follow up no matter what. Now,
Mm.
there's 3 types of follow-ups. There's following up to get clarity. If something happened and you want to restore connection in some way because you perceive something that is harming your connection, we call that following up to get clarity with them. Having that conversation to restore connection, help you understand the situation, and make sure you're both moving in the right direction. Then you have a different follow up, which is to hang out again. So this is just like, hey, I want to hang out again. This is so great. Let's do this. And then you have follow up to just start a conversation. All 3, and then you can have that simple follow-up, which is just like, "Hey, this was so fun. Thank you so much." Like, so important. But you take the reflection stage and everything that you dove deeper in with them, and you bring it into the follow-up stage. That is what creates the friendship. If you remove this, you have no friendship, you just had a good hangout.
Yeah.
This is the key, and this is it's so funny, I watch a lot of vlogs of younger people in their 20s in college who are vlogging their friendships in a way.
Mm.
And this is the piece they lack the most. They lack the reflection, they lack the follow-up. And a lot of the times I watched one like a month ago and he went out, he did this like friendship challenge. He's like, I wonder if how many people I can invite. I want to invite 100 people to meet me at the park to have a hangout session. And so he went out and started initiating to all these different people, getting rejected, making it. He's like documenting his whole process where he was mentally with it. He's like, man, I'm struggling right now. I'm getting rejected a lot. But then he'd get like 10 people to help him. And once that was over, it was over. There
Yeah.
wasn't much follow-up after that. He even mentioned, he's like, "I don't know what to do now. Like, it's over. Now what? It's I guess I just move on with my life, find another project to do." But when you start instilling, like they have this tendency to be able to initiate and create that conversation, but when they never set up the follow-up to hang out again. That's the key ingredient here. And the last step, which is the most critical step, is repeat. That is the you just do the whole thing over again. This isn't a one-time thing. You consistently repeat this over and over and over again. You know, they say, like I mentioned earlier, 200 hours to make a best friend. We say 200 cycles of the friendship blueprint to make a best friend. If you want to get someone to the inner circle, you have to do the same process 200 times. Hang out with them 200 times, reflect 200 times, and then reinitiate your needs. You need to go back and re-diagnose your needs because sometimes it's like, hey, you know what? This actually friendship isn't a fit. Or maybe I actually, you know what? I actually feel way safer with them. I feel like they're pursuing me. I feel like my needs have been met and we are actually in this circle and we've moved forward. Because it's less about the circles are less about boxing someone in and more about a bullseye, the direction you're heading, the
Mm.
navigation point of where do you want to go in this friendship and where's the place of arrival, where's the place of like, I actually feel really good in the environmental stage. I feel so good here. I'm just going to camp out here. This is a good place. I feel healthy here with this friendship. And then other here, it's like, no, actually we need to navigate to a new location. I want to go deeper with you. I want to go further in. So it's less of like, hey, you are a level 2 friend. It's like, no, actually I want to just go deeper with you and this is how I navigate that path.
I love that. And I'm assuming you can do the opposite way too. Like if someone was potentially in your inner circle and just for various reasons, I think just by nature of life being life, people grow and evolve.
Mhm.
If you want to move someone from the inner circle to potentially just an environmental friend, I'm assuming you can do that too, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you are in control of it all from your own perspective, right? I mean, that's why a big piece in the first step is expressing your desire to friendship. So I always recommend if you're trying to go deeper, let them know you're trying to go deeper. Otherwise, there is that disconnect of like, hey, you were my inner circle, and like now we're chin tree. Like, have a conversation. I'm always about the conversation. I lead people through, I think, was it a 3-step process to breaking up with a friend or whether or not
Mm.
you should move back, I guess, in a circle of friendship. And
Mm.
the first thing that you have to do in deciding whether or not you're going to move back is have you talked to them? Have you expressed your needs to them? Or have you just left it alone? You're like, you know what? They interrupt me every time I talk. I'm done with this. Well, have you talked to them? Have you shared that you are hurt, that you feel unknown, that you feel belittled when they talk over you? Okay, yes, you have talked to them. Great. Now the next step is have they made any effort to change?
Mm.
Have they put in that effort? What's going on here? And the next one is like, has anything adjusted? Has it been consistent? Have they consistently not shown up? Have they consistently shown up? And what we're looking for is we're not looking for someone to change immediately. I know we have that expectation a lot. We expect, "Hey, you interrupt me when I talk," and the next day they interrupt you, and you're like, "Oh, they did it again. That's it. I'm done here. I'm over." It's like, "Whoa, hold on." We don't change like that. If we bring it to our own perspective, if you wanna grow in patience, this is the key. If you want to grow in patience, you have to grow in understanding.
Mm.
And that understanding is simply sometimes reflecting about how do you respond in that situation. If someone asks you to change and you want to, we tend to take time to adjust. And so what we're looking for a lot of the times is, are they making an effort?
Yes.
Like, "Oh, you know what? I did it again. I'm sorry." That's a good sign of a good friend. That's a friend who says, "I wanna change. I want to adjust so I can love you better." That's a sign of a good friend, is the ability to adjust within the friendship. The ability to say, "Oh, I didn't realize this hurt you. I want to adjust." And we're not expecting perfection from them. We're expecting the momentum of change. It's like, "Okay, you did it again. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'm trying to adjust." That's a win. That's what we're looking for a lot of the times.
I feel like this podcast could not only be about friendships, but also marriage advice. And
Yeah.
something like it's a rule my husband and I came up with in our marriage. I was like, rewarding effort as opposed to
Mhm.
execution. I'm like, some we get it wrong. The intention was there and the effort was there.
Yeah.
The execution might have been way off, but it's going, hang on, what was actually driving this, and appreciating that and acknowledging that. And
Yeah.
and understanding we're all human. I think you mentioned change takes time as well. It's like in the fitness industry, people going, "Oh, I've eaten healthy for 2 days. Why haven't I lost weight?" It's like you got to keep doing that shit for a long time. It took you a while to get to this space. It will take you a while to undo what you've done as well. But the consistent effort and just keep showing up is what gets it done, right?
That's right. That's so good.
And so, what is a really actionable step someone can do in the next 24 to 48 hours if they're feeling a bit lonely or disconnected? What's the
Mhm.
very first step that they can take to start building that circle of supportive, fulfilling friendships?
Okay, the first one, if you don't have the inner circle friendships, if you don't feel like you have that around now, understand it's gonna take time, and if you don't start now, it won't happen. 2 years ago, I looked around, I had no men in my life. I was like, "Wow, I have no one I can share my pain with." I now have a circle of about 6 men that I can go to and confidently share the deep pain of my heart, but it took 2 years to get there. So I would recommend starting now. 2, what you need to do is find 1 to maybe 3 people in your environment that you want to build a deeper friendship with, and then understand, where do you want to be going? What's the next stage? Are they someone that you always seek out in the environment? Great, let's move them to the victory circle. What do you need to move them to the victory circle? Start understanding where you want to go and understand what you need to get there. And then you can have a conversation with them about the expectations of what that look like. Let them know you want to go deeper, have that conversation, but just start there. Start by identifying some people and recognizing, what do I need to get there? And then initiate. Be the initiator, be the one who takes that step.
I love how you mentioned it takes time, but the time's going to pass anyway, right? Like
It will.
2 years into the future, you have that such great supportive network of friendships, but it was the effort of what you initiated 2 years ago. So start now. Time's going to pass anyway, and when the time passes, you'll have a strong group of friendships around you as well.
That's right.
And so, thank you so much for sharing your framework and such incredible knowledge and wisdom on this topic. I always get so much from listening to episodes as well. Listeners are keen to learn more about the incredible work that you do. Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to thefriendshipblueprint.com. You can get this whole thing listed out step by step for you, so you can have a detailed walkthrough of what you need to be moving forward in. And we wanted to make this like an incredible offer for people and make it like a no-brainer. So what we did is we recognized some of the challenges that people face when they go through friendship. And so one of the issues, like we mentioned before, is like there's limiting beliefs that actually keep us and hinder us and self-sabotage our friendships. So we created 20 mindset shifts that share the false belief and the truth, and we give that away to you for free. And then likewise, a lot of us don't know how to go ankle deep. What is it? What's even an ankle deep question? And how do we even follow up on those questions? So we created an ankle deep question vault that we give you for free, that you can access every single card in there. And then likewise, maybe you don't know how to reflect. Maybe you like, I don't know how to even ask myself those questions. We created a full question guide that will walk you through every step by step. That way, you know exactly how to do it, exactly how to process your emotions. We give that to you for free. And then likewise, some of us have this fear of rejection. We don't even reach out because we're so concerned with being facing the pain and sting of rejection for people. So we created an entire rejection proofing mini course that we give away for free as well in there. And likewise, some of us have this issue with intentionally following up with people. We lack that ability to follow up. We lack the ability to even just reach out and create a connection point. So we created a 30-day intentional friendship challenge that we also give you for free.
What? That is incredible. I'm like, oh, where can I sign up? I'm jumping on it. And listeners, and be sure to do yourself a solid and download that as well. It sounds incredible. Thank you so much, Shane, for your time today. I've had such a wonderful time learning all about friendships and connecting with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is amazing.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope this was helpful. If you thought of someone while listening to this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could share this episode with them. While you're doing that, please also take a moment to leave a review on the podcast if you haven't yet already. It takes less than a minute and it means so much to me and helps this podcast to reach more people just like you. Thank you so much for that, and I'll see you in the next episode. In the meantime, go out and achieve every dream you have, because actually, you can.